last time in Battle Network 2, we had gathered together the strongest net battlers, and we were tricked, bamboozled, and we were infiltrated. Let's use all the adjectives. And the net mafia had infiltrated our defenses, and we learned they're trying to build like a super net navi, and that's basically what happened last time. So now we're leaving Nettopia. We leave Nettopia, and by the way, last time, remember when I was like, boy, do I wish we could see what happens on the plane. Boy, am I like a fortune teller or something? Because this episode, we can actually see what goes on the plane. But not before they do like a little fake out. I'll give you credit, Capcom. I was not expecting like a little fake out. I was like, man, you're really gonna not show us what's on the plane twice? They show like Lan meeting up with all his friends, and then just turned out to be a dream sequence. You had me there, Capcom. I appreciate you. What I kind of don't appreciate though is how they do the plane sequence. I feel like it could have been a little better. It feels like the train chapter in Thousand Year Door, how it was formatted like over not a couple days like the train, but maybe a couple hours. I've never ridden a plane, so I'm not really sure if you can walk around like how Lan does every so often, but I don't think you can do that. Of course, a portion of a game where you can't walk around, understandable, but you gotta take some liberties. But for this part of the game to be, sit down. All right, now talk to everyone. All right, return to your seat. Now, all right, walk around, talk to everyone. All right, now return to your seat. All right, now talk to everyone. It's a little redundant. I want a little not variety, but something that shakes it up, I guess. Something like the Excess Express. Where you sit down. People move. Not people move around a bit, but maybe like I'm thinking like with a plane, like maybe they bring your things like food to you or something. Like there is like a mystery element like with the Excess Express. Maybe that's why I'm like drawing so many similarities. But the idea of just having the entire game be contained in like a little small area like a train or a plane or anything like that, it's very interesting to me. In Mega Man Battle Network 2, jumping specifically to that, you gotta go around, talk to all the people. Eventually there's a poisonous spider that gets released onto the plane. You talk to the bug god entomologist, I believe that's what the scientific name is, and he's like, we have to catch the spider. You need to get a box, a string, a stick, and some sort of whiskey, because spiders, they love their whiskey. And so you have to go through and talk to like a whole bunch of people, try and find all these ingredients. That's a good way to like build, I think, not only the game unlike you could say a shoestring budget, but also like a compelling narrative. You know, you have a lot of characters, and then you can just, jump back and forth to them and, flesh out characters. But of course, I'm saying, Battle Network 2, of course, wasn't done on a shoestring budget. This is a Capcom game on a big franchise. They have, Mega Man. They wouldn't just throw little pennies to their Mega Man Battle Network studio and be like, go work on Battle Network. No, this was like a little thing, a little side quest to, not a side quest, little, what do you say, a little part of the story that was made in a way to, made in a smart way, I should emphasize, to cut costs. And I have to emphasize smart way. Now, smart. Jumping back into the story, we had to get all these things for the poisonous spider aboard the airplane. Scrolling up into my notes here, we had to get the whiskey, and you get the whiskey through like a rap battle, and it's like a little mini game type deal, and you get what is it? I think they say you need string or rope, and you talk to the flight attendant, and she's like, how about you get thread? And we're like, we're trying to catch a poisonous spider aboard. Come on, lady. And then you need, what is it? A stick or something? And you talk to this old lady, and she's like, me and my husband used to make chopsticks for years. And she gives you chopsticks that her husband that passed away used to, or made. It's like a whole long story. And all this is orchestrated from, the entomologist we met. Again, I said that this should be like a frame more like the Access Express, where, you meet these guys, get to know them, and, like over the flight, you kind of like, your friendship evolves with these people. You get to see more signs to them, if that makes any sense. You also meet like a character that he has a character portrait. He doesn't really talk, if you know what I'm saying. And then we take the captain's hat. Because that was a part of the things we needed. That was a box. I think that was the one that threw me off a little bit, because I knew the whiskey, you could see it, you could talk to, the people for the other two. The hat was just hanging up on the door, kind of far and away. And then when you have it all set up, then it's like, also I have to praise this chapter for another thing. All this happens and you don't really use Mega Man at all. This is like kind of a land only, um, not chapter. It's not. I'm alluding to Paper Mario Thousand Year Door a lot. I guess not event. Sequence kind of fits. Um, yeah, this is like a land only sequence. Mega Man talks, of course, to land, but this really feels like land's doing something. uh, as opposed to the last sequence where land, he really just got mad at Mega Man, threw the pet aside. That just kind of felt weird and out of character for him. So we set we set up the hat and the chopsticks and the whiskey, and the spider comes out, and we catch the spider. And again, this is happening on a plane. So, spider's on a plane. Like, all it takes is the plane to turn a certain way, and that spider's coming out of that hat. And so we return to our seats, and the spider's still under that hat. Nobody's moved that hat. And all of a sudden, it's like, alert. The plane is malfunctioning. And this is like where the Mega Man portion comes in. We have to send Mega Man into like various portions of, I guess, the plane's electrical work. I thought this was probably the easiest dungeon, I think, if I remember correctly. Definitely not the easiest boss. Let me get this straight. If there's one thing forward, or I'll have to be forward with you about, not the easiest boss in the world. Okay, to just summarize the dungeon in its entirety, you got like magnets. The main gimmick is magnetism. And you're going through this labyrinth, and if you see like a red rail and step on it, then you're going in that direction. And then you come up to a machine, and then you hit a button on the machine, and it turns off all the red magnetism throughout the entire level. And then you walk along, and then you see a blue rail, and then you step on that, and then you just go in one direction, not the band. And then you see a machine, and then you go beep 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 beep, and then it cancels all the blue magnetism throughout the whole level. I'd say masterpiece of a dungeon. It's a dungeon. You don't have to look up anything. It's fairly understand. The only gripe I have with this dungeon is, like I said before, every time you clear a little bit, you think you're done with the dungeon. The pilots are like, Mega Man, we have a problem with the left wing. Then you gotta go in the left wing. Mega Man, you gotta go in the right wing. You gotta go in the right. Mega Man, the central engine's failing. You gotta go in the central engine. Mega Man, the the wheels aren't working. You gotta go in the wheels. You just keep going back to land for no reason. It's like, I feel like if you want flip-flop like that, I don't know, just don't flip-flop. This was like an all-land sequence. Now it's like flip-flopping for no reason. Just don't flip-flop. If you want to flip-flop, just show. it would have been perfect on the DS. It, just showing Land's perspective on the top screen, actually, and Mega Man's perspective on the bottom screen. Kind of like I've never played it, but Dream Team perspective, I think that would have been like really good. I know this released on the GBA, so kind of really was ahead of its time. But I just recently found out they remade the first Battle Network for the DS, so kind of dropped the ball for remaking this one for the DS. Yeah, you sure remade this one for the DS, Capcom. What are you doing? All right, now we're gonna be talking about the actual boss and his Net Battler controller, who we met earlier on the plane. Like this old man, this executive-looking guy, and his backstory is he thinks like society turned on him, and his parents died, and then he like gained wealth and fame and climbed up the rungs of society and joined gospel and helped with the Super Navi project, and that's his main reasoning why he doesn't like society, is because society doesn't like him. So his plan is I don't know. He just wants to take down this plane with him on it, I guess. And he's going to use magnets to do it. So Magnet Man, like I said before, it is one son of a gun. He is both incredibly tough with HP. He has a lot of HP, and he sends like bunches of little magnets at you. And you're like, all right, just blow them up. And you do that. And the gimmick from the dungeon, like the little magnet floors, they're in the fight too. So if you try and dodge out of the way of the magnets, the floor like sucks you into the center. And you're like, alright, so I'll use Gutsman to break up the floor. Well, that works for a little bit until I guess Magnet Man has the ability to rebuild the flooring. And like the whole Magnet Man fight is like just a whole thing in itself. And then when you get him low on HP, then he can split himself into and combine. He can get on your side, and a part of him is on the other side, and they can smash together. And all this is happening while, magnets are flying and you're getting sucked into the center. It's a it's a whole thing in itself. All I'm saying is you really have to just focus on movement. That's the best way to I guess do it. That's the best advice I can give you. Just focus on moving away. But once you do it, finally, they get the plane under control, and you delete Magnet Man. Not forever, because they always have a copy of Magnet Man online, and you'll eventually be able to refight him. The plane touches down, everyone's safe, and Mr. Goss gets arrested by like everyone on the plane. You walk off and you meet up with all your friends, your mom. You know, it's a happy little ending. You go to bed, and then it cuts away to your dad meeting up with another scientist guy. And he's like, there's disasters happening all over the earth because in the world of Mega Man Battle Network 2, and perhaps our world, you know, we're too connected with technology. You know, it's a metaphor. And there's there's ice built up in, well, ice viruses, I guess, built up in the internet. And because of that, there's disasters happening all over. I'm going to cut down a lot of this next arc because it's bananas. I'll just say, and I cannot believe people say I cannot believe people say Paper Mario Thousand Year Door has bad backtracking. Anyone who has said that, please sit down and play Battle Network 2. That's all I'm going to say. So what happens first is you enter the internet and you're like, boy, oh boy. Well, what happens first is you find out Roll has gone into the internet to go, you know, solve the mystery of ice or something. And then you're like, boy, oh boy, let's find Roll and crack the mystery of ice. And now you cannot navigate the internet easily because there's blocks of ice everywhere. So you can only smash one color of ice. And so you have to navigate your way over slowly. And eventually, once you smash all the, I believe it is the white ice, then you talk to I don't know, I guess a net navvy, and they're like, hey, why don't you talk to your father and give this to them? And then they're like, here you are. And then I think it's the red ice, red frag. And you go back, talk to him, and he's like, well, here you are. Now you can smash red ice. And then you go around smashing red ice to get to Roll. You talk to Roll. You're like, all right, what do you think's gonna happen next? Nothing, really. Normally they tell you what to do next, but or some event usually occurs after you do something, but nothing happens. And what you do next is it's a lot of smashing ice. You need to smash like every color of ice you can, and then you talk to a net navvy, and they're like, hey, do you want to smash more ice? And when I say smash every ice you can, I mean smash every block of ice on the internet in every area. And no, the encounters do not go away. And yes, you can get lost. And it's on the internet, and then they also have you going on the undernet, which is just like more places to search. And then you talk to people, and they're like, hey, I'll give you the ability to smash more ice if you want, but talk to my friend. And you're like, all right, well, where's your friend? Oh, they're on the other side of the internet. And then then you go talk to their friend. And then they're like, all right, how about you get me some like 4 chips? And you go get 4 chips for them, and they're like, all right, cool. How how about you post a sign in the undernet, and then you go down and post a sign in the undernet, and then come back to them, and you're like, go talk to my other, the original friend. And you go back to talk to the original friend, and then all this is, going back and forth. It's the it's ridiculous. It's bananas. It's I didn't think I could do it. Honestly, it's a lot of, and the ice is in very specific spots all over. And if you do them out of order and you're not following your guide, then it's like you're out of luck, because how are you gonna know where all the ice is? I have no idea. So eventually, you find out, specifically where the Net Mafia Gospels base is in Kodo Square, and you go there, and you learned who put all the ice everywhere. It's Freeze Man, and Freeze Man's whole thing is also he's surrounded by all the ice, and all the different colors of ice. That's kind of cool. I'll give him that. Someone mentioned, I saw a comment that was like, they were trying to make like the whole internet the dungeon. I think just that alone, I have to give him that. That's a cool concept. But the execution, it's kind of lost on me. But Freeze Man, his whole thing is, he's not tough. I wouldn't really expect a challenge after that crazy, I'm not even sure, Easter egg hunt of a dungeon, but I would have gone bananas. But his whole thing is you just use a chip on him, and then he's open for more attacks, but he's always hiding in like a block of ice. Pretty easy. He uses wind attacks, drops icicles on you. You can do it. That's all I'm saying. One more thing I forgot to mention when you're hunting for all the ice and stuff. I came across Mr. Match from earlier in Battle Network 1. He was one of the main guys of World 3. And I guess he's a reformed. I'm not sure what other explanation there would be for him to be appearing in an airport. But you can rebattle him, and that was a nice delight to see. So now we have Mr. Match and Higsby, just I guess reformed. I'd trust Higsby more than Mr. Match, though. Maybe the other World 3 members are, viewable. I'm not sure. I never found them in my time playing the game, but I'm not sure. But jumping back to Freeze Man, once you beat him, like all the ice shatters, and it's like, wow, I guess we beat the Net Mafia. Let's call it a day. And then you go back home to your mom, and your mom's like, wow, I guess all the net crime is done. And you just go to bed. And then it cuts to 1 week later, and Chad and Protoban are facing Gospel. And they just get like overwhelmed by Cutman and Quickman. And it's like, what is going on? I thought all the net crime was done. And it's a little fake out. I feel like it could have been a better fake out ending, honestly. I wasn't really expecting the game to be done, but you know, they faked us out on the plane. They're faking us out here. You gotta appreciate it to some extent, but your dad's like, we have to investigate Kotobuki Square, you know, because there's like high levels of electromagnetic radiation radiating off of there, and you know, that's where their base was. And we go back there and it's like, there's still viruses coming out, and like little cutscene plays where Mega Man just like pew pew pew, he's firing at the little viruses, and he's like, I can't stop them all, and they're just like really regular guys. So Mega Man and Lan, they go to the dad. He's like, we have to stop them at the source. Let's go to Kotobuki. And you know, the dad's like, I really don't want to send you there. You know, it's it's filled with electromagnetic radiation, and that the electromagnetic part, it's really carrying a lot of the weight. You're gonna find out in a little bit. He gives Lan a mag suit, which is like supposed to protect him from the radiation. Another nitpick I have, you know, he's wearing a suit. You couldn't give him a special thing for the suit. Make it look like he's wearing something, anything. It's that's something Pokemon would do. Like, come on, man. But the electromagnetic radiation, like messing with the digital world and the real world, and it's like blending them together. Like I said, you really have to put yourself in the mindset and be like, all right, electromagnetic radiation, you know. You really have to lean into the electromagnetic part. Eventually your dad gives you the Koto Pass and you make your way to Kotobuki Town. Just the way you have to use the pass too, it's kind of weird. You have to not go up to the counter, like the train pass counter, to use it. You have to buy a pass to a different town and then decline to use the other pass. And then Mega Man's like, do you want to use the Koto Pass? That too can be streamlined, I feel like. And then you end up in this strange. I love the vibes here. Okay, I'm gonna spoil two different games here. Custom Robo, spoiler for Custom Robo, reminds me of like the end game of Custom Robo, how you find out how like the world outside is like completely destroyed in Teen Titans, the game. Like how you find out, spoiler, how everything is a video game and the world starts like breaking apart. Like I really like the vibes. The vibes are immaculate in this town. Only nitpicky thing I would say, you know, this is supposed to be, you know, I guess the town where everything's like falling apart, you know, to the digital world. You know, digital world's coming here. There's people just walking around the town being like, ow, I'm being irradiated. You know, you could have done something cool with that. Be like, hey, they're becoming their Navi, or you could have done so many cool things with that. Or like had Lan turn into Oh, you kind of do something like that, but that's a little later. So you go up to the elevator, you elevate yourself, and then you're like, all right, like just around any corner, it's gonna be the final boss. And all of a sudden, all of a sudden, the friends show up. What are they doing here? Brother, if I have to nitpick apart, sure, there are people walking around this town. All right, I'll let that slide. Why? That was a genuine sigh. Why do you have Yai, Mei Lu, and Dex walking around in the irradiated town? There's another plane. Why? Why is there so many planes? That's like the fourth plane. But why do you have all these people walking around and Land doesn't even have, or doesn't even look like he has, like, any protection from irradiation? It's crazy. Capcom, you're crazy for this. So you go up an elevator and jack into a server here because the radiation is having servers come out of the floor, and the digital world is merging with your own, and that's the whole point of the little dungeon here. Like I said, it's a cool little dungeon mechanic they got going on. You're running around, reality's warping, distortion world kind of effects. It's essentially like they play it off like you're going up the apartment complex 30 floors. It's more of you're just running around trying to find keys, and then once you find the key, you go up to that thing, and then it's like, does this key work? And then it works, and then you have to continue along until you find a new key, and then you're like, does this work? And then you're taking out little paths until finally you find the right path to go down. I'd say it's probably, I want to say, not the best. Well, I'd say mid-tier out of all the other dungeons. Like, some of the dungeons in this game, they would be better if they're shorter, or if they didn't have such ridiculous things, but I feel like once you understand it, and for some reason, once you put in the key, it faces you in a weird way. Besides that, this dungeon's pretty good. But after the ice dungeon, or ice arc, I was just so fed up with everything. Honestly, I had the Buster Max, and I was like, brother, I didn't want to fight anything, honestly. And there's these shield enemies, and you can't beat them instantly, and that was getting me so angry. And those shadows, you can't beat them instantly either. You need like a sword type chip. The the shield guy I was talking about earlier. You can beat them with Buster Max. I discovered if you have Silver Fist, you can punch their shield and then pew. That little tip for at the end of the dungeon, you go up against the first 3 bosses of the game: Airman, Cutman, and Quickman. Again, they were the first 3 bosses of the game, so you shouldn't really have any trouble. If there's any trouble, it just really comes down to you can't heal. But again, they're the first 3 bosses. You dispatch them quickly, and then you move on to Land getting irradiated. And he's like, "Oh, Mega Man, you're going to have to figure out a way to stop me getting irradiated." And then you go back into like I wouldn't say the second part of the dungeon, just like a little mini portion of the dungeon. And in this portion, you go up against the next 3 bosses: Magnet Man, Nightman, and Freeze Man. These 3, I can understand if you have trouble with them. Particularly Magnet Man. Nightman, he's kind of a troublemaker. Freeze Man, again, he's Freeze Man. I think for this fight in particular, if I beat a boss on my own, I just use Mega Buster to go back through it if I lost later on, because 3 in a row against Magnet Man, he's a son of a gun. So once you clear those 3, the radiation level, why is that hard to say, drops. And Land's like, "Wow, now I can not be irradiated." Well, he is still irradiated, but the magnet suit can stop it at a healthy dose. He can get a healthy dose of radiation. So you go into the boss's lair, and the boss kind of looks like a Pokemon Coliseum kind of guy. Spoilers for Pokemon Coliseum. And he's like, "I am the leader of Gospel, the Net Mafia, and I've organized everything, and with my radiation, I order all the crimes around the world." Then he starts getting a little meta. He says, "People are just actors, hiding their true selves. My monitor here is more honest than the lot of them." So, he's spitting facts. And then he says, "I already have the Super Navi. The world is mine. Don't you want to join me? Join Gospel with Mega Man and my Super Navi. We'll be unstoppable." Well, can't you just even name your Super Navi, man? And then we jump in, and alright, here's another little nitpick I have. Why can't that just be us versing him? I get, you gotta build up anticipation. I love that. And I appreciate that. But why can't we save at the boss? Because this is a tricky boss. We jack in to like I don't even know what to call it, like a weird area, gospel zone. And then it turns out like all of our friends are there, but they're all angry at us and they want to beat us up. And then they're really throwing like a bunch of curveballs like at the last quarter of the game. And then it turns out all of our friends that want to beat us up, they're not our friends. And then all of our friends come in and beat up our fake friends. And they're actually here. Remember them from before? Here they are. And then then our friends, our real friends, get beaten up by a fake Proto Man. And it's like, uh-oh, now we gotta fight Proto Man. And then the fake Proto Man gets beaten up by the real Proto Man. It's like there's so many curveballs in like 30 seconds. And now after all that, they just let us continue walking down the gospel road with our friends who are, I have to remind you, now Todd is here. We're all standing in a radiated room with the man who is also irradiated. Like that's his whole plan to power up his super navi. We told them to not be here. What is up with that? So we continue along, and then he's like, I'm going to rule the world with Gospel's Bass Project. So I didn't do this in the original Battle Network. You could fight Bass. Was that like a little sneak preview of this game? I like to believe so. His whole thing now is he's gonna make an army of them. That's pretty cool. The Bass fight himself, I could tell just from a couple things that this is the final boss. You know, he's wearing a cloak. It kind of looks like he's holding back. And if I don't have too much trouble with the fight, then I can tell, you know, other people are gonna be like, oh man, that was easy. I'm like, that was easy? You know, I thought, you know, it was medium difficulty for me. You know, I feel like if something's medium difficulty for me, then it was easy for everyone else. Base's most powerful attack is just like a surge of electricity that you can probably dodge and weave through the entirety of it. I could only do like a little bit of it, but again, this is me we're talking about, but I have high hopes for you, listener, that you can dodge and weave through the entirety of it. But once Base is defeated, it is revealed that the leader of Gospel is the kid that we met on the plane that was kind of silent and didn't really say anything. He then powers up the machines, I guess, his servers, and he increases it to like an incredible amount. And our friends are like, all right, we gotta get out of here now. This is a good time for us to skedaddle. And he increases it so much that Land, he's like, oh man, I can't take it anymore. You know, this is the point of no return. You know, oh, you know, he's pulling at his shirt collar. He's like, oh boy, now I can feel it. And is at this point where, you know, spoiler for Mega Man Battle Network 1, Mega Man, he is the unborn twin of Lan named Hub. And they kind of, because with the electromagnetic radiation, they that's fusing the real world and the virtual world. And because they're twins with like a connection, they kind of fuse together in this ending cinematic here to become, well, they don't really become anything. They just both become Mega Man, and Bass becomes just a dog. And with the increase of radiation, again, the gospel leader, he hasn't got a name or anything, which is kind of both sad and makes him a little more mysterious. I don't know. What do you think about this guy? So now that Bass is a dog, you would think, you'll just be thrown into the fight. But no, your dad calls and he's like, hey, did you guys stop the multi-bug organism? And we're like, yeah, Dad, that's created already. You're a little late. That phone call kind of feels out of place. Like, or at least it should have happened like a little while ago. Like, why is he calling now? He should, if anyone should have showed up, shouldn't have been Yai or Meilu. Should have been Lan's dad. At least he would have been wearing a radiation proof suit, or at least I would have believed he would have been. He's the one who made it. I feel like he has some sense about him. At least, not enough sense to be calling in the middle of a tense moment like this. But then again, he doesn't know everything. But jumping into the second stage of Bass, which again, I have to remind you, if you die against this form, you have to go through the little labyrinth, watch your friends die, watch Proto Man show up. You can skip the cutscenes, but you still gotta walk through the labyrinth, use the Buster Max on Bass if you want to, or if you want to save your health. That's kind of crucial for this form. Bass second form, it's tricky because you can only hit him in the mouth, and he has two forms or two attacks that let you hit him in the mouth. He has an attack that shoots straight forward, and then he has an attack that kind of curves, and then he has like little guys that get the signs, and he's a son of a gun, actually. And when you get him to like lower health, he summons like other net navis, and then when you get him to lower health, he just breathes fire and sucks you in. That is the most disrespectful thing I've ever seen. Honestly, just why would you do that? In addition to just having to refight Bass and go through the little maze with all the little enemies, and you're still thinking about the ice part, and still have PTSD. It's like, holy, you really gave this to us. It's wild. Honestly, my only advice for this is just always be moving and always be charging up your blaster, and always, I don't know, just focus on the mouse at all times, because the color of the mouth will determine what blast he'll do next. One thing I tried to do is do area grab and then like move in for a sword attack. That had various degrees of success. I would stick with hanging back and chipping away at his health, But, you know, if it worked for you, I guess it works. Once you defeat him, you know, the nameless gospel leader, you discover his backstory from like a newspaper from an old diary. It's kind of like a weird way they wrap it up. Like his parents died from a plane crash, kind of like Mr. Goss they do. It's just makes you think, why do they have Mr. Goss here, I guess? And then afterwards, they're like, hey, computers were the only thing that never betrayed him. And then you're like, hey, don't worry, I'll be your friend. And that's kind of how it wraps up. It then just kind of cuts to, you know, all your friends partying up at the Okuden campsite. You know, good times. And your father's there, Higsby is there, your mom's there, you know, everyone's there. And your dad's like, you know, someone might have been manipulating him. And again, the head of gospel is never mentioned, never named. And you know, what if there was someone pulling the strings? What if Wiley was here? And he says, Dad's work is never over. And yeah, you know, hint at Battle Network 3. There's 2 3s for some reason. And suddenly the stove bursts fire. And Plan's like, oh man, I got put out that fire with Mega Man. And then he jumps up and does the super duper Mega Man pose. And that's how the game ends. Oh, remember when we were talking about Sonic Mania? There's a post-credits scene where Bass is like, those fools think they can control me. I bet you can rematch Bass again in the Undernet, but I ain't gonna go through that. This game's tough enough. You can grind out chips and get legendary stuff. You know, I'm mixed on this game a little bit. I know I kind of said that on the first Battle Network game. Again, I'm looking forward to how they iterate each Battle Network game. How is there like 6 of these Battle Network games, and how are they each? How is there 2 3s? That's the big question I want to know. I'm in too deep now. I'm kind of like looking back on the first Battle Network game, my experience there. I'm like, man, that was a good game. And I'm remembering back, and I'm like, when I was playing it, I was like, man, that was a tough game. And I was feeling kind of mixed on that game too, with the number puzzle, and the electric maze, and the ice puzzle. And I wonder if, when I move on to Battle Network 3, if they're just gonna throw something crazy at me, and I'll be reminiscing on this game. Maybe that's how you're just supposed to play Battle Network. I'm not sure. But next episode of Sonic Mania plus Knuckles plus Battle Network is going to be really special, because we're not going to be talking about the games anymore. The games are wrapped up. But we're going to be talking about something else. I'll leave it at that. So look forward to that. And with that, I'm going to finally call it an episode. This is like the longest episode ever, and it's going to take forever to upload this. So until next time, catch you later.